Cool. So Bob Lowe, everybody. Welcome to BALLZ in Your Face Marketing. I've been looking forward to having this chat with you. So let me try and quickly introduce you to our audience a bit, and try to set the stage about what we're going to talk about. Hopefully you can still hear me there. Can you hear me still okay, Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. Okay. It's a little quiet, but so yeah, this is interesting. So I've been kind of following a little sort of chain, one event leads to another, and it's led me to one person or one conversation down the line. And much of that really started from a peer now that we both have in common, Roger Wilkerson. We were talking a bit about a brand, and I see that you're connected with him there, with a bunch of other people that I know and work with in Asia and in Singapore in particular. So you're a Facebook and Instagram advertising specialist and digital marketing strategist and specialist, rooted there with Two Lane Social and Thai Odyssey Group, right? And so yeah, so one of the funny things, it was interesting because actually, Roger and I, when we were talking, did have a very brief sort of touch. He touched on the fact that there are a number of cultural differences between the East and West, without a doubt. And probably most significant, or the one that people talk about most, is really that, traditionally speaking, the West is sort of places the individual at the sort of pinnacle of society, whereas the East tends to be much more collectivist society. And so you're a very active guy. You're I would say, as an outsider, looking in, that you're someone actually sort of almost behaving like a Westerner in an Eastern market. Is that a fair thing to say?
Definitely. Should I give a brief bio so that the listeners know what my background?
Fix all of our audio issues there. Why don't you tell me a bit about your background?
All right. I started back in 2011 when Facebook marketing just started to come to Asia, and there was a lot of branded content that needs to be done regionally. I started my career in agencies like Isobar, and for a brief time I also was at Saatchi & Saatchi. That's where I got to do a lot of regional work. So I've experienced marketing, of course, in my home country, Malaysia, and extensive experience in Singapore, in Indonesia, and also a small country called Brunei, and also some experience for Thailand. So yeah, basically, like you said, now I'm part of the Thai Odyssey Group, which is the biggest spa chain here in Southeast Asia. I also handle their marketing in China, which is a totally different monster, perhaps. And I work with Casey on the Two Lane Social, where we get clients around the region, and we work with people like you from outside of Asia. So yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Very cool.
You said something about the collectiveness of the cultures and the individualism.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's certainly just sort of a sort of the classic sort of East meets West philosophies. Again, for sure, I think Asia is certainly considered much more of a collectivist society. I've often been kind of interested in about this as, what happens with globalization. We've been talking about globalization for years. So how do these two major cultural differences reconcile themselves? I was watching a program the other day, very interesting, about morality in children, and it basically was showing that children are born with a natural sense of fairness and morality, but then they were also showing the differences between Eastern and Western cultures, and in particular, for example, how Eastern cultures value modesty much more than, let's say, the West. So again, when I sort of jokingly say, okay, I see you peacocking around like a Westerner in the East, it's largely based on that characterization, and it's a bit of a generalization for sure. But share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I come from a background where I'm Chinese in Malaysia, so we are sort of immigrants, not really immigrants, because my grandfather immigrated here. So I'm sort of third generation. So in each market here in Malaysia, you have sort of the mix of races. That's why you have the differences. Like if you're marketing in Singapore, which is 3 million population, you will also get differences because we are very diverse here. So each country, even Thailand, it's not so diverse, but in Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia, we have some diverse cultures, especially Indonesia, where they have so many different islands scattered around the place. When it comes to, well, I really enjoyed your talk with Roger, where you talked about the collectivism. And I actually, I knew it was something to do with our culture, but I didn't come to the word collectivism. Actually, it's a difference. Like in the West, because of maybe your religion, where in the Bible or wherever, it's an individual that that becomes the hero per se. Like you have like your Bible heroes, but in Asia, it's all about the community. It's about our village. So it all comes from a village mentality, a clan mentality. Like if I am rejected out of the village, I would have nowhere to survive. You know, I would have to have um, um, good support from the village to get my groceries and to do business. So it's a very collective society. Even more so, I think you briefly touched on some of the things going on in Canada. For Asia, the most conservative, in a way, conservative country here in Asia is Japan, because of their history and because of a lot of things. In Japan, it's such a collective society that everyone wants to go home late from work so that you're seen as a hardworking husband or hardworking provider. And even if people lost their jobs, they would actually dress up in suits and go to the park just to seem like they go to work. So it's an interesting insight, but that's how we think. And when you talk about humility, I had an experience last week. I was working with an American. I was doing some influencer marketing. We gave an offer, and then she said, "Oh no, that's not good." So we counter offered, and she came back to us and said, "That's also not good. This is what we really want. We want 9 of these things." And she's American, and being a humble culture, Asian culture, what we did was we didn't say no, which I realize now it's a mistake. We have a difficulty saying no. So without saying no to her, because she expected us to say no and then go down back to the offer, and then we didn't go back and say no, and so it didn't come to pass because we didn't say no. We moved on to the next person. We'll say, and then when she asked us again, we say, yeah, we'll think about something next time. We have a problem rejecting and saying no because it's not our culture to outright say no because of this, because you're not good or whatever. We just politely yeah and smile, but we'll never say no.
Well, I mean, it's also that you're reminding me of another sort of difference that I observed when, especially, and then there's a lot of other cultures like that, but certainly, in Canada and the West, when you go to a market or anything, there's not much haggling, there's not much negotiating or for price or anything. Usually, for me, if I go to the market and there's something on sale, the price is the price, and you just pay it, kind of a thing. Whereas, I did, sort of a funny thing in Thailand when people said to me was like, well, you have to barter. And if you don't, in fact, it'll be insulting if you don't. So maybe I'm wondering, maybe she was just like, well, I have to negotiate with it. Maybe she thought she was being respectful.
Yeah. In Thailand, it's a bit different as well. Just to tell you a bit of a difference, if you're in Hong Kong and you look at something and you don't intend to buy it, they are Hong Kong and Singapore. They have like an urban mentality, so they'll say like, hey, why are you looking at this if you don't plan to buy it? So even like in such a small region, we have very big differences when it comes to culture between Hong Kong and Thailand, and between Malaysia and Singapore. It's totally different because of the economy and our cultures.
So should a business that's coming, that's outside of Asia and is coming in to the Asian market and marketing to them, what factors should they be considering? And also, I guess, as I said, you seem to be marketing yourself and your business in a more sort of Western style approach. So are you sort of going against the grain in your culture, would you say?
Um, it's good for me because I stand out in the crowd, but the same content will not do very well with my friends, perhaps, but I haven't posted anything on Facebook. But LinkedIn is sort of still a safe space to do that. But in terms of marketing, yeah, there is a disadvantage. People might think you're showing off. People might think that you're not humble. So, but what I'm doing is I'm just grabbing attention and sort of getting attention before I can get more business. I think just for your listeners, I think Julian is talking about some of the videos I do on LinkedIn. So I watched a lot of people in the West do videos on LinkedIn, and they can go 2-3 minutes without stopping, and they just know what to say. But English is not really my first language. So after 15-20 seconds, I'll say something, but I forgot the right words, and I will fumble or whatever. So I figured I can only go for 15 seconds. So let's turn the content into wine. Wine, wine. So I like, hey, what can I do in 15 seconds? I'll just say a sentence, and I'll just say 2 or 3 sentences, and that's a video. So that was my strategy in LinkedIn. If I can't do 1, 2, 3 minutes videos like people in the West do, let's do what's best I can do in 15 seconds. And that's what I've been doing on LinkedIn, and getting good traction. And I can do it daily because it's only 15 seconds.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, you're right that there's a lot of people sort of posting out videos right now and sort of as for attention grabbing. I'll concede that actually I find a lot of it. A lot of the videos that I do see, some of them are very good. Some of them I find exactly as in fact I think you would say Asian cultures might observe them as not modest or showing off a bit. And these are the people more what I'm talking about, people who just sort of get in there, hey man, look at this, I got, look at me, I'm making 50K a month, my business is rolling, look at me, and then it's a picture of them in front of a car, and they're really just trying to sort of look cool and rich. And it's very boastful, and I see no value in that approach to marketing. I see it as just pure boastful, purely sort of narcissistic, to be honest, and not delivering value. So the way, I find that the way that Roger does his videos, they're light, playful, but he always has a message. And often I think you do too. Like I've seen like a lot of yours in terms of, hey, this is, don't do this on your profile, do this, and so on. So at least, I think you're giving advice to people, and I think that's a good way to go. I think if there's no point, like if there's no message and you're not teaching people, or giving some kind of value in some way, then I don't know whether there's necessarily a long-term benefit to it in terms of brand building.
I've realized in the Western videos, there's always a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. Basically, Tai Lopez's video wouldn't work so much in Asia because we can't identify, we can't relate. Where a Gary Vaynerchuk we could possibly relate because he's not flashy. But the way he talks is quite intimidating. But we can identify with him because he works very hard. He's just very straightforward in the way he talks. Just like when Asians speak English, we don't have much description or adjectives. We just talk to you straight to the point, and that's how we like our communications as well.
Well, yeah, no, and I think there's a huge appreciation for that too, and I think I've spoken a bit about this, that I think that's what the internet is sort of achieving, is this opportunity for people to really just speak themselves in their own voice, in their own character, be who they are online, and let the chips fall where they may. Let their audience, who for whom they speak to, find them and stick with them. And for those whose style it doesn't blend with, they can move on and find somebody else that does speak to them. So I think it's a cool opportunity for everyone really to just speak exactly, to be their authentic selves.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you'll find your niche or somebody that identifies with your video anyway because you put it out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of asking this before, but maybe do you have any sort of tips or things that let's say for Westerners who want to get into the Asian market and market their products or services in Asia? Do you have any tips for them?
Any tips for them? Just prepare for the diversity. Like if you are, I have handled a US client, a US FMCG client that in different markets, Malaysia, Philippines, and a few countries. Prepare for the diversity. So the same ad that works very well in Indonesia will not, like same thing, like a same ad that works very well in the US will not work very well in Canada. So it's the same copy, same media will not work very well in the same country or just the country next to it. So prepare for diversity. Oh, of course you have to come here and taste and live the culture to know how it's like. Even when it comes to messaging apps, like for Malaysia and Singapore, it's Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp actually, and then followed by Facebook Messenger. But when you go to Thailand, it's Line. Have you used Line before? It's just Messenger with GIFs, all the GIFs in Messenger. And when you go to China, it's of course WeChat. And yeah, Line is big in Korea and Thailand. And then so prepare for the diversity and yeah, prepare for the diversity. It's very diverse. We're not all the same. So that.
Yeah, no, well, absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's huge differences even just within China alone. So yeah, no, that's interesting stuff. And where do you see and I'm stepping it back from less, I guess, taking it away from just the marketing side of things and just on a cultural basis, where do you see technology and the meeting ground between East and West?
The meeting ground. I think in terms of technology, Asia would be leading the way. I'm not saying it because I'm here, but because there are a lot of mobile technology coming out of China, which is quite interesting and very transformative. So the messaging app in China, WeChat, allows you to use it as a payment gateway. So people in China don't even carry their credit cards or cash. So it's been trying to be replicated here in Southeast Asia, and soon it will be. And there are other more technologies that are now coming out of China. It's just because they have the collaboration with the government, and also they have a lot of talent. Like I think you can find the CEO of Apple recently. He said we are not manufacturing in China because of cheap labor, but because you can get a football field full of engineers just by like this.
Yeah.
So it's the same here in Malaysia or in other countries like Cambodia. Lots of people are coming here to Southeast Asia because it's a more open market than China. So lots of people are going to Cambodia and to Myanmar and Thailand because we are just starting out. And you'll get, I've seen some of the marketing from Thailand and all these emerging countries. They're more edgy than things from the West. They are more fun and more edgy, and they not just stand out, but they are more interesting in a way. So yeah, so
I find it very interesting how the technology brings us together and sort of puts those differences out on a platform where people people from around the world are interacting a lot more. And so we're sort of being exposed to each other's attitudes and opinions in a much more sort of organic way. And I find it very fascinating to see how that sort of permeates across cultures, and that you see, you know, people within individual cultures kind of latching on or attaching themselves, something, identifying with something from another one, and then bringing it into their own and making it part of their own culture and so on. I find it just a fascinating time. And I agree with what you're saying, that there is a huge amount of talent in Asia. I actually do feel like, you know, in the West, in Canada and maybe the US, and certainly maybe even parts of Europe, that you know, there's a younger generation, I feel like, that's been spending so much time sort of enjoying the media and playing video games, while other cultures have maybe spent a little more time just thrilled at the opportunity to have all this access to information and have been teaching themselves, and that we're sort of underprepared from it, you know, because being a developer, I think is a great thing to do and be these days, and I don't know that we're producing that many.
That the thing is, we still use technology or social media from the West, like we use Facebook here, but we put an Asian twist to it. So just to give you an example, before Facebook Marketplace, actually Facebook Marketplace is not here yet, but before Facebook Marketplace actually came in, we actually had Facebook groups that sell stuff. So we had Facebook groups to actually commerce in Vietnam, in Malaysia. So we use, because we hustle a lot, so we put Facebook groups to sell secondhand stuff or to sell anything we could. And when things come here, so we will put an Asian twist to it in the way we use it. You know,
you brought up Japan, you know, and that's probably one culture where I would say that I have very little sort of clear insight into, or peers or and so on that I talk to. I always wonder this though: what is going on with robots in Japan? I feel like one of these days, Japan's just going to roll out a gazillion robots on us.
Have you should see the video. In the West, you have like Google Home, you have the Alexa.
Yep.
But what Japan did, we put an Asian twist. It's not even Alexa, but what we did is we put a character on the AI. So imagine like your Alexa has a dress and has like a face, a cartoon face, talking to you. So it's basically the same thing, but we put like a twist to it and humanize it, and that's how we enjoy the
yes. So
AI.
yeah. So but what's going on? See, like sometimes when I see like you know what I do see coming out of Japan, and some of it is very very innovative, and I think going to be great for a lot of people, you know. So for example, I'm thinking of these sort of medical assistant robots that I've seen them working on and developing, which I think they're using already in the Netherlands a bit. But yeah, there seems to be this real desire in Japan in particular to humanize robots, to make them lifelike as much as possible. That you know, and not that there aren't people in the West that have a huge desire for something like that too, but I find it a little fascinating.
Yep. I'll just say that this is what my Japanese friends tell me, that they live in Japan and also they've come to Southeast Asia, and they really love Southeast Asia because Japan is sort of, in the Western terms, a very conservative society, and almost on the other end, that they work like robots in a way. It's very clique, and they're all very homogeneous, and they work together to make a better country, which is nothing bad. But there's no individualism, so you don't enjoy being an individual or standing out from the crowd. So they need something to sort of escape to. So whether it's the anime, or whether it's the robots, or whether it's some things that they like. So that's what's happening. So when there is sort of escapism for them.
That's interesting. Yeah. That's interesting. So, and here's a tough one. And again, this isn't really so much marketing related. This is more cultural related. But is one right over the other? You know, when you said, you know, they, like, again, they're much more sort of a homogenous collectivist society. Is one right? Is one wrong? Is there a middle ground that's the right balance?
That's a question that is not only for Asia but is around the world. The pool of conservative and inclusive inclusive liberalism is in the West or in the East. But it depends on it's good for who. As a country, you would want, I think no, but Japan is successful because they are homogeneous. They don't, there's almost no immigration in Japan. And so they can function like clockwork. So
Yeah.
that's why they can invent machines and robots. But they are now starting to realize that they need expats from America, and if you have a skill set, now you can get a PR there, but it's still quite selective. So they're realizing, hey, we need some talent outside here, we need some diversity. There's no right and wrong answer, but of course diversity is good, but with diversity you comes with a lot of challenges as well, because with diversity you have different cultures together, and there will be differences. We're not really all the same. And when you have homogeneous, you don't have the mix of the different cultures, you don't have the excitement. So it's not just here, it's everywhere in the world, but there's no right answer. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely more individualism in the West, which is very good. The most similar country to the West here is Singapore, where it's very inclusive. It has a lot of democratic values, and it's based on meritocracy that to get into the country. But there are cons as well. Saying this on a live chat, but there are cons as well. So
it's America without bubblegum.
Yeah, there are cons as well. So the people also have the same concerns, that the people are not getting enough rights and they're not getting enough privileges. So there's a check and balance. In Malaysia, it's very interesting because there's one race. We're going to politics here, but there's one race. There is when in the last election, which was 1 week ago, we have conservatives of both sides of the election. But one of the parties, one of the coalitions had more of diverse parties, and one had also diverse, but it was more conservative, and they were in power longer. So we are, as Malaysia as a country is still trying to get better in terms of race equality, but in terms of that, we're still working hard towards that.
But you're hopeful, so you seem very hopeful though about this recent sort of election, and what are the changes that you're expecting out of that?
Basically, the power struggle in our country, we had one party basically have control of our government for over 61 years, and it was the first time we changed. And the new parliament that went up is more racially diverse, and we have a good number of women in parliament, which is a good thing. But looking forward, it should be quite a good thing, bright future here for Malaysia as we take steps towards this.
Cool. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, no, this is fun, man. I could probably talk to you for a long time about this. Do you have any sort of takeaways for our audience, or anything that you want them to sort of be aware of?
Depends what the audience wants. If they want to market in Asia, you definitely have to come here and taste it, and we have to be aware of the diversities. Even though we are Chinese or Hong Kong, between the difference between Hong Kong and Thailand or Singapore, it's quite diverse. Even though we sort of are the same.
Again, like I haven't spent much time in Asia, but I did get several years back, because a friend of mine in university, his brother was living in Thailand, so we went and stayed with him for a little while, and I was quite surprised. Not so much again in Thailand diversity, but in a way, really, that I was surprised at the internal racism. That there that there was this sort of lighter to darker racism. And it kind of in Thailand that it really sort of moved from the south to the north, that as you sort of moved further north, the skin tones got darker, and the further north you were, the less respected they seemed to each other. And I find it very uncomfortable too, actually, the degree to which being that they sort of put a value on me as just for having white skin. It was, I mean, so, you know, I mean, my first day in Thailand, and we went out to a Thai bar where it was mostly Thais, huge crowds going into the bathrooms and so on. And I just wanted to go pee, you know, and tons of people crowded in. And before I know it, I've got a guy like, you know, shoving the crowd away from me, get everybody moving, help him, you know, getting me up to the front of the line. I think like massaging my back while I'm like, just like, geez, I just want to pee, like, you know, like treating me like a king. And I felt I was very uncomfortable by it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 2018, but being a white person here in Asia, we still give you a lot of credibility. Like if you ran an agency here in Asia and you are white, people look up, oh yeah, that guy knows what he's talking about, but sometimes he does not. But
just by being white.
And in terms of the skin tone, this is just I'm just saying this, but I used to do stand-up comedy, and I used to say the Indians here we have Indians here in Malaysia, and the Indians here, because of their socio-economic position, are a lot like the black people in America. They are into, a lot of their young people are into violence. They have very less privilege, and they are mostly in poverty and mostly into gangs and stuff like that. It's quite a mirror to the situation in America when it comes to skin color. But yeah, even for Chinese people, we also look at skin color a bit, but it's changing right now. We are getting more and more diverse as we progress. So even we are accepting of different cultures, different religions, and we are becoming more and more diverse as time goes by.
Yeah. No, well, that's a good thing, I think. Cool, man. Well, thanks so much for you know, having a chat. Hopefully maybe we'll get a chance to do that again. Keep on doing what you're doing. I see you're killing it on LinkedIn as well. So you got Facebook, Instagram, and now I think LinkedIn, maniacs of LinkedIn with Roger Wilkerson. Did he give you a nickname?
Yeah, something like SpongeBob, Funny Pants or something.
Right. I think he was gonna go with for me, I think he decided that at first I was the Canadian Freud, but I think we're settling on the Maple Madman.
Are you into psychology?
Well, I have a degree in psychology. My undergrad is a Bachelor of Science, but that was years ago. I graduated in '96 from the University of Toronto. Went straight into marketing and advertising. Stepped out of it for a little bit and went to study studio engineering and sound design, and was going to go work in studio. I love audio. But then ended up getting a job offer for a multimedia company that was just sort of doing everything, like all the media. They were doing on the web, they were doing video. It was an opportunity for me to use some of those audio editing skills. And so I worked for them for about 10 years, doing multimedia production. And then really it's been in the last year and a half or so that I've really been focused on how to take that media and get it exposed and get it ranked and get, you know, use social marketing so that it actually goes in front of an audience. Because obviously, you know, that was my issue was, you know, I see a lot of companies spending a lot of money on fancy videos. Yeah. And then it gets, you know, 50 views in a year because they don't know how to market it. And so what's the point of that high production value? And again, I think these days, you know, people don't need that high production value. They're valuing content itself. And that's why I say, you know, if you've got a good positive message, some real actionables, real learning lessons that you can impart, this format is just fine. You know, it's not high quality, but it does the trick in terms of conveying information. And I get a sense that people are valuing that.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I wish to see more content coming out of Asia. There's currently a lot of content from the West, but there should equally be more. That's why we're getting more people in Asia to do LinkedIn or YouTube podcasts and things like that. But we're starting to pick it up.
Look, you know what? It's very, people catch on to it. So a lot of people love it. A lot, like, I mean, yeah, a lot of Asian cultural exports become very popular, right? Like anime is huge in the West. My kids love Larva, which I think is out of Korea. I could be wrong about that. So it's an animation show of these two little larvae that just get into whatever little antics that they do. My kids love it. So yeah, man, I look forward to seeing where all of this goes and see this sort of convergence of cultures. I'd like to see that too. I'd like to see more Asian marketing. Sometimes sometimes it's just funny. I love the differences. I love it when you know, something, you can tell that something was made for an Asian market and it doesn't play as well in the US, but there's something charming about that.
It's very,
I love it.
Very agey and very, how to say, new and agey.
I've got big balls.